Have you ever dragged yourself out of bed at 4:30 in the morning, your eyes burning, your body begging for just one more hour, because some guru on the internet told you that winners wake up before the sun? Have you ever sat in the dark silence of your kitchen, forcing down lemon water you didn't want, staring at a journal you didn't feel like writing in, wondering why you felt more empty than inspired while the rest of the world still slept? If you have felt this heaviness disguised as discipline, this exhaustion wearing the mask of ambition, then this story is for you. Because sometimes the habits we adopt to save our lives are the very ones slowly stealing them away. Once in a bustling city of glass towers and rushing trains, where everyone measured worth by productivity and speed, there lived a young woman named Maya. Everyone in her office knew her well. If a project deadline loomed, they counted on Maya. If a client needed attention at midnight, Maya answered the email. If the team needed someone to present, to organize, to stay late, to arrive early, they went straight to Maya. She never said no. She always smiled and said, "Of course, I'll handle it." She believed that success belonged to those who outworked everyone else. She read the books, she watched the videos, she followed the entrepreneurs with their perfect morning routines and their million-dollar smiles, and every single one of them said the same thing. Wake up at 5 am. So Maya did. She set her alarm for 4:45 am. She placed it across the room so she would have to stand up. She prepared her clothes the night before. She bought the special journal, the meditation cushion, the blue light glasses. She believed that if she could just master the morning, she could master her life. But slowly, without realizing it, Maya's life stopped belonging to her. Her sleep grew shallow and broken. She would lie awake at AM, anxious about the alarm that would come too soon, calculating how few hours remained, watching the numbers on her clock glow in the darkness. Her afternoons became a fog. She would sit in meetings, her mind drifting, nodding at the right moments, but feeling disconnected from her own words. She consumed 3 coffees before noon, then crashed by 3 o'clock, hiding in bathroom stalls with her eyes closed, counting the minutes until she could go home. Her evenings disappeared. She would eat dinner without tasting it, scroll through her phone without seeing it, then force herself to bed by 9 knowing she needed rest, knowing her body wouldn't give it to her. Her creativity dried up. The writing she once loved felt like a chore. The paintings she used to create gathered dust in her closet. She told herself she was being disciplined. She told herself sacrifice was the price of greatness. Her sister looked at her with worried eyes and said, "Maya, my dear, you are running so fast, but you look like you are disappearing." Maya always gave the same small smile and replied, "It's all right, I'm building something. One day," she promised herself, "I will look back, and this will all be worth it." But that day felt further away with every dawn. One Tuesday morning, the city was wrapped in winter darkness. The alarm shattered Maya's thin sleep at 4:45 am. As it always did, she stood up. She walked to the bathroom, she looked in the mirror, and she did not recognize herself. Her eyes were hollow, her skin was pale, her hands trembled slightly as she reached for the face wash. She had followed the routine perfectly for 8 months. She had woken up early 192 times. She had done the journaling, the meditation, the cold shower, the protein shake. She had done everything right. So, why did she feel so wrong? She walked to the kitchen in the dark. She sat at her table. She opened her journal to write her 3 pages of morning thoughts. As the gurus instructed, her hand hovered over the page. Nothing came. Not because she had nothing to say, but because she had forgotten how to listen to herself. She had spent so many mornings performing discipline that she had lost touch with what she actually needed. She sat there in the silence, the refrigerator humming, the city sleeping, and suddenly she began to cry. Not soft tears, not quiet tears, the kind of crying that comes from a place so deep you didn't know it was hurting, the kind that shakes your shoulders and steals your breath. She cried for the sleep she had sacrificed. She cried for the creative joy that had evaporated. She cried for the version of herself that had believed success required self-destruction. And in that darkness, at that kitchen table, with her empty journal and her broken routine, Maya finally understood. The AM Club was not saving her life. It was destroying it. The next morning, Exhausted and confused, Maya did something she had not done in months. She turned off her alarm. She slept until her body woke naturally. The light was different, golden and soft, not the harsh black of pre-dawn. She lay in bed for 20 minutes, simply breathing, simply being. Then she called her Aunt Elena, a retired physician who lived in a small cottage by the ocean, 3 hours from the city. Maya drove there that afternoon. She found Elena in her garden, wearing a wide straw hat, pulling weeds from rich dark soil. The air smelled of salt and rosemary. The sound of waves came steady and rhythmic in the distance. Maya sat down on an old wooden bench and said, "Ta, I don't understand what I'm doing wrong. I followed every rule. I woke up early. I did the routine. I sacrificed everything. Why do I feel like I'm failing? Why does discipline feel like death?" Elena continued pulling weeds for a moment. Then she sat back on her heels and looked at her niece. "Maya," she said, "look at this garden. These tomatoes need sun. Yes. They need water. Yes. They need good soil. But do you know what happens if I water them at midnight? If I expose them to light when they should rest? If I force them to grow faster than their nature allows?" Maya thought for a moment. "They die." "Exactly." Elena wiped her hands on her apron. "You are not a machine, Mija. You are a living thing. And living things have rhythms, seasons, cycles. You have been forcing yourself to bloom in winter, and then wondering why your petals fall." Maya listened as Elena continued. "For the next 7 days, I want you to do something radical. I want you to sleep until you wake naturally. I want you to work when you feel sharp. I want you to. Have you ever felt like you're running on a treadmill that just keeps getting faster? Chasing deadlines, smashing goals, always pushing for more. That was Maya's entire life. She was the queen of productivity, the master of the to-do list. Her calendar was a perfectly organized work of art, color-coded and packed from sunrise to well past sunset. To her friends, she was an inspiration. To her colleagues, a powerhouse. But behind the scenes, Maya was running on empty. Every morning started the same way. The alarm would shriek at a.m. Before the sun was even up. She'd already finished a high-intensity workout, answered a dozen emails, and planned her entire day down to the minute. Coffee wasn't a morning treat. It was fuel, poured into her system like gasoline into a race car. She believed that every wasted second was a missed opportunity. Rest? That was for the weak. Sleep? A necessary evil, to be minimized. She was climbing the corporate ladder at lightning speed. Promotions, bonuses, praise from her boss, she had it all. But with every step up, the pressure mounted. The vibrant colors of her life started to fade into a dull, monotonous gray. Laughter with friends felt distant. The taste of her favorite food became bland. She was excelling in her career, but she was failing at life. The breaking point wasn't a dramatic explosion, but a quiet, slow crumble. It started with small things. She'd forget names of people she'd known for years. She'd stare at a spreadsheet, and the numbers would just swim around, making no sense. Then came the physical symptoms. Constant headaches, a knot of anxiety that lived permanently in her stomach, and an exhaustion so deep that even after a night of restless sleep, she'd wake up feeling like she'd run a marathon. One afternoon, during a crucial presentation, it happened. Maya stood in front of the board of directors, the people she'd worked so hard to impress. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Her mind, usually a fortress of facts and figures, was completely blank. All she could feel was a wave of panic washing over her. She excused herself, rushed to the restroom, and just stared at her reflection. The woman looking back at her was a stranger, pale, with dark circles under her eyes, her spark completely gone. That evening, she didn't open her laptop. She didn't check her emails. Instead, she called her grandmother, a woman who moved at the pace of the seasons, not the stock market. Through tears, Maya confessed everything: the pressure, the emptiness, the feeling of being a ghost in her own life. Her grandmother listened patiently. When Maya was done, she didn't offer productivity hacks or time management tips. She just said, "My dear, garden that is never left to rest cannot produce beautiful flowers. It only produces weeds. You've been weeding for far too long. That simple metaphor hit Maya harder than any corporate jargon ever could. A garden that is never left to rest. She realized she had been treating herself like a machine, not a living, breathing human being. She had been so focused on producing that she forgot to just be. So, Maya decided to conduct an experiment. She called it the art of doing nothing. It was terrifying at first. For her first act of rebellion, she deleted the AM alarm. She woke up the next day when the sun streamed through her window. It felt strange, almost illegal. She didn't go for a run. Instead, she made a cup of tea and just sat by the window, watching the world wake up. The first week was the hardest. The urge to check her phone, to plan, to do something was almost overwhelming. It felt like an addiction. She had to literally sit on her hands to stop herself from making a to-do list. She started small. Instead of a power lunch, she took a slow walk in the park. She left her phone at home. She noticed the way the light filtered through the leaves, the sound of children laughing, the feeling of the breeze on her skin. These were things that had been around her all along, but she had never had the space in her mind to notice them. She started reading for pleasure again, not for self-improvement. She rediscovered her love for painting, something she hadn't done since college. She put on some music and just let the colors flow, with no goal or expectation. Sometimes the paintings were a mess, and that was okay. The point wasn't the product, it was the process. At work, she made a radical change. She started taking a full hour for lunch, away from her desk. She began saying no to projects that weren't essential. She was terrified her performance would plummet. But a strange thing happened. By working less, she accomplished more. Because she was rested, the hours she did work were more focused and effective. She was no longer just busy, she was productive in a way that mattered. Her relationships transformed too. Without thinking about the 10 other things she needed to do, they noticed the change. And Maya realized she hadn't just been absent from her own life, but from theirs as well. One weekend, she visited her grandmother. They sat in the garden, and Maya watched as her grandmother gently tended to her plants. She saw the cycle of planting, growing, and resting. She finally understood. It was the soil from which everything else bloomed. It's the silent, invisible work that makes all the visible work possible. Maya's life didn't become perfect overnight. She still had stressful days, but her relationship with productivity had fundamentally changed. She was no longer a slave to her schedule. She was the master of her energy. She learned that true success isn't about how much you can do, but about how well you can live. It's not about the hustle. It's about the harmony between effort and ease. Her color-coded calendar still exists, but now it has new colors. There are blocks of time shaded in a soft, calming blue, rest. There are green blocks for walk in nature, and there are bright yellow blocks for do absolutely nothing. And these, she discovered, were the most productive appointments of all. So if you feel like you're on that treadmill, getting faster and faster but going nowhere, maybe it's time to press the pause button. Maybe it's time to schedule your own do-nothing appointment. Because in our relentless pursuit of more, we often forget that sometimes, to allow our gardens to lie fallow for a season, so they can come back stronger, more vibrant, and more beautiful than ever before. Maya learned that lesson. It gave her back her life. If this story resonated with you, let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about living a more intentional life. See you next time.